So today I want to talk about subwoofers and whether or not you use a subwoofer in your two-channel setup, all right? Because from what I know, from what I've heard, this was not a common thing, back in the day. The people who considered themselves audiophiles, back in the day, maybe in the 80s and beyond, 90s, even into the 90s, never considered, having a subwoofer as part of their two-channel setup, right? And I think, there are more than one reason for, or at least there can be a reason for that. I think back in those days, most of the equipment that were out, the integrated amplifiers or stereo amplifiers, did not really have a dedicated subwoofer line out on the backs, like which is it's common these days. To a certain extent, it's quite common. So that could be the reason. So a lot of people who were in two-channel audio did not really, that was not something that they had to think about. And so over time, I think individuals who consider themselves audiophiles, I don't know who's an audiophile exactly is, but people who were really in love with the art form of two-channel sound, they never had to think about adding a subwoofer because the option was not there, so to speak. I mean, they could implement it if they want by, building something and add it in some way or form. But for a pure setup, a pure two-channel setup, the option was not there because most of the integrated amplifiers back then, or stereo amplifiers, did not have that feature of a subwoofer out, right? A subwoofer pre-out, so to speak. All right? And so when this started to gain traction, the idea of adding a subwoofer to a two-channel system, when it started to gain traction somewhat, the more traditional folks, were still a bit skeptical. And even though, the amplifiers that were coming along, the integrated amplifiers, stereo amplifiers, these all-in-one systems, more and more of them started to integrate, this feature in them. Still, a lot of people from, in my age group and further back were still a bit skeptical. As far as they were concerned, a pure audio system is just having, a pair of good full range speakers that can produce good enough bass, good enough mids, and good enough sound in the top end, right? But then as time went by, the issue of space has become more or less an issue for a lot of people. More and more people start to use bookshelf speakers, right? Small bookshelf speakers because a lot of people just did not have the kind of space to entertain tower speakers or bigger speakers, for that matter, right? And of course, you could find bookshelf speakers which produced, decent bass, but then not deep enough for a lot of people's taste. In my case, to be candid, I have not invested a lot in audio gear. Most of the stuff that I have purchased are used items. I think I have purchased one very good integrated amplifier which I sold because I just did not have the time to enjoy it to its fullest. right? But it was well endowed, subwoofer out and everything, a very good DAC inside. But I sold it because I was too busy. It was just sitting there and not getting the kind of love that I think it should get. So it was, yeah. So what was I saying? So, more and more people realize that, well, okay, I mean, you can find a few bookshelf speakers that will produce decent enough bass. But if you have an integrated piece or, an all-in-one streaming amp, or something like that, which has a subwoofer out, why not just connect a subwoofer to it, right? To kind of enhance the bottom frequencies, And this is a thing that is still up. There's still a little bit of debate going around regarding this, whether or not pure audiophiles need to have a subwoofer in their system. For me personally, I'm from a culture where we kind of worship bass. We love bass, right? And even though I'm from a culture of the heavy dub music, heavy, deep, the kind of bass that move your intestines. If you know what I'm talking about. I'm from that culture. I grew up in that kind of an environment. So bass was something that I cherished. I loved good bass. But as with anything, my tastes have evolved over the years. These days, I'm not listening to much of those kind of music anymore. It's more jazz and crossover jazz and that kind of stuff. But I still love to have a nice bottom end where I can hear all the the bass frequencies, the upright bass, kind of get flushed out in the bottom end. So I have been using a subwoofer in my system, right? Because to me it just sounds more fuller, so much more dynamic, so much more complete, if I may use that word, right? What I have here is a little Yamaha. I think I have had this maybe about 5-6 years now. Just a small subwoofer. To be honest, I have 3 subwoofers in my house. I had this one in my living room where I connect a little Aerolik, the Aerolik streaming amp. Yeah, the Aerolik amp is connected to my TV. I'm going to do a little review on it sometime. So the optical is connected to that little amp, this tiny little thing. But man, and it has a subwoofer out. So what I do, instead of buying a sound bar, I use that. I have 2 tiny speakers for left and right, and this is on the floor. This was on the floor under a chair somewhere. Because you have to think about the wife acceptance factor, right? As was invented by Technodad. Yes, Technodad. Yeah, the wife acceptance factor. Yeah. So I had this upstairs and I just brought it down. I love this little sound because it when I'm watching movies, it just gives the movies a little bit more oomph to it. But also when I'm watching, when I'm playing back music, I just want something to kind of flush out, to enhance the bottom end, because I'm using bookshelf speakers. I don't have tower speakers, I'm just using bookshelf speakers. So I just wanted something to kind of enhance the bottom end. But I think, like I said, this idea of using a subwoofer in a 2-channel system, there's still a little bit of debate. I mean, a lot of people have warmed up to it. A lot of audiophiles have warmed up to the idea of it, right? But I still think there are a few people who still hold out over their dead body. Will they ever, add a subwoofer to their 2-channel setup. Nope, will never happen. But needless to say, I think it is something worthwhile considering if you're running bookshelf speakers. Just to maybe just experiment with one. I mean, you get subwoofers that are even much smaller than this. Like, compared to my other 2 subwoofers, this is tiny. This is like a 12 by 12 in terms of the cabinet, and I think it might have maybe a 4 or 5 inch driver inside. Very simple and clean setup at the back. Yeah, so I love it for what it is. It can be placed in a very discreet spot in the house. It can be hidden, which is why I have not sold it. Yeah, so do you use a subwoofer in your 2-channel system? I want to hear about it. Hit me up in the comments, let me know. And what are your thoughts about the whole idea and this whole debate about using a subwoofer in your stereo setup? Tell me about it. I love to hear. But anyway, I just thought I would just share this, my thoughts about the whole idea of it today. Personally, it is something that I do. I've always done, because I love bass. I love a tight, clean, well-defined kind of bass. I find that it enhances the music for me. I mean, our musical taste will vary, right? What is food for you, or what is food for me may be poison for you, but it's just the way it is. We all have different taste. We all have, look at this audio video space from a different perspective, so yeah, I just thought I'd share my whole opinion and thoughts about using a sub in a 2-channel system, something that I have always done, like I said, and I think I will continue to do. And but what are your thoughts? What's your take on it? Let me know in the comments. If you love this video, give me a thumbs up. If you love the channel, why not just subscribe? All right, let's continue to listen music and watch movies. All right, so that's all I have to share with you today, guys. Until the next video, you take care of yourself now. All right, all the best.